military career, starting as a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, leading to being a decorated Air Force officer and pilot. Jason continues to serve as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve as a squadron commander for the 905th Air Refueling Squadron at McConnell Air Force Base in Kansas, where he leads a unit of men and women that fly the Boeing KC-46 Pegasus tanker aircraft. Please welcome Jason to the podium now.
Good morning, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Ryan, I'm just going to start and say clearly, the Air Force is the superior service. Want to know how I know?
Arguable.
Very arguable, but clearly we are the superior service because I dare my wife to try to convince me of anything. Just don't tell her I said that.
Got you on tape, bro.
So as I was asked to come up here, I was trying to figure out what do I want to say, and I was looking for my notes, and I think the governor took my notes, so I've got to figure out how to come up with something on the fly. But there were three words that came to mind. The first word is commitment. Second word is gratitude, and the third word is legacy. Commitment. You guys have heard the story about Stephen A. Cohen, Cohen Veterans Network, and what they've done around this nation. That's commitment. I learned firsthand about this level of commitment that they have from a close family friend and someone who is a family member of a post 9/11 veteran who happens to be in the audience today. And as I was talking to this friend explained to me that they went through their own COVID-19 sequester, or whatever you want to call it, well before COVID-19 ever happened. They were the spouse of a veteran who had been deployed, and all the trauma that that veteran had gone through, and all the trauma that this family member had gone through. And they had 4 beautiful girls. And this spouse, she had to figure out how does she endure and how does she go through life every single day with the mounting challenges that she was facing. Facing not being able to walk due to some complications with her back, facing the other challenges of just everyday life. And as Ryan alluded to and other people alluded to, the challenges of being a military spouse and everything that comes along with. It was her clinician, Cammie, as she told me her name, that she said saved her life. Once a week, Cohen Veterans Network paid for her to catch an Uber from Colorado Springs up to the Denver clinic and would treat her and see her. There was never a question about the cost. There was never a question about her treatment. The only question was, are you getting better? And are we doing our job? And that was clearly the Cohen Network showing their level of commitment as they have set out to do from day one for the post 9/11 veterans, for their families, and for their children. That's a level of commitment. For everyone in this audience, what is your level of commitment to our post 9/11 veterans? What's your level of commitment to their family members? And what's your level of commitment to support this clinic and their team and what they're doing here in our community for our veterans? Gratitude. I'm grateful. The reason I'm grateful is because at the end of 2020, I hit rock bottom. I hit that wall, and I didn't know what I was going to do to continue on. The voices got to me. Everything that I had planned for 2020 was no longer existent, as many of you all can probably attest to. Like Ryan said, I had fought and fought and fought to never go to mental health. I had fought and fought to never say that I, the pilot, the officer, the Air Force Academy graduate, the superior service guy, needed to take a combat knee. I had fought to say that I don't need to just take a knee. I don't need to take a combat pause. I don't need to have a seat and take 2 knees. But when you hit rock bottom mentally and you no longer have control, you have to find help. I picked up that phone. Fortunate there was someone on the other side that was able to help guide me. At the time, I did not have access to the Cohen Clinic. I didn't even realize that my friend had told me about this clinic, and I didn't realize they were doing it virtually. Shame on me for not digging a little bit further. I only wished I had that access. But that said, I picked up that phone and when I hit rock bottom, and I was grateful because that person in 2 sessions, they were able to help me to find some clarity. They were able to help me to figure out how to start adding pebbles of sand and rocks so that I can climb up from rock bottom and make my way back to reality so that I can continue to serve, so that I can continue to be a spouse for my wife, so that I could continue to be a father for my daughter. Mental health is serious, and it is okay for us to reach out for help for those who are curious and wanting to know if we can. When I talk about that gratitude, I talk about that trauma that I come to the military with. I'm 44 years old right now, and what I tell people is that I'm number 2 of my mother's 6 children, the product of 3 marriages and 4 fathers to her 6 children. I grew up in the inner city streets of Oakland, California. At 7 years old, I sat in a crack house watching my uncle sell drugs. When I entered the United States Air Force at the United States Air Force Academy in 1996, at 17 years old, I came with a bag full of trauma. I graduated commissioned in the United States Air Force in May of 2001. A few short months after that, we all know what happened. 9/11 happened. And I remember being at my girlfriend, now my wife's house or her apartment in Denver that morning as my mother, an Army veteran, enlisted Army veteran, 100% disabled veteran, called me to wake me up and tell me to turn on the news. And as I turned on that news, to see that second tower get impacted, realizing that my life was now impacted forever. And so for me, the trauma of my childhood, the trauma of 11 combat deployments, the trauma of 7 special operations combat deployments, the trauma of losing people, the trauma of being on the back of that C-130, doing those ceremonies on the ramp for our fallen service members. You don't forget that. You don't forget every time you take a casket and you slide it in and you slide out of that C-130. You don't forget the trauma of flying service members that have been wounded in battle, flying them from Walter Reed. And you don't forget the voices, the crying of that young person who's 18, 19 years old, who's younger than you, and they're clinging to their mother because that's all he has to hold on to. You don't forget the trauma of watching that special forces or that Delta Force operator who asked for shock therapy because he no longer could handle what he was going through. And he sits back there just waiting and asking for help. You don't forget all of that trauma. You add that to what we come to this military with. We are just nothing more than a sliver of our society. And we continue to add that on. And many of us, we just take all of that trauma and we shove it into that bag. And we say, nope, I don't need it. We make very crass jokes. If you give Ryan and I 5 minutes, I promise you, in about 5 minutes, it's going to go to a poop joke. 5 minutes is going to go to us actually smiling and laughing and making each other laugh. What's your name, sir?
Alex.
Alex?
Yes.
Not even 5 minutes. I realized Alex and I, he could be one of my counselors because we were able to find a common bond based on having been served in Balad. But we go to this humor. We go to what we know, what's familiar, and we continue to shove those mental challenges and that trauma into that bag. And so for me, I'm grateful for this clinic being in this city because now I know for me personally, it can be a resource for me. I know that it can be a resource for my friends and my fellow service member and fellow veterans. You know, since I left that special ops community, I've talked to some of my buddies, some of my brothers and sisters, and they've cried and they've told me the challenges. The third word, legacy. This community has a strong legacy of partnerships with our military and our veterans. They've gone hand in hand for years with the partnerships throughout this community. As Anthony mentioned, this is merely one additional avenue in the consortium of options that our veterans have within this community. This is creating another element of the legacy of the city of Colorado Springs, and it creates another element for us as service members to continue our legacy, to ensure that we don't lose track of continuing to build our legacy. You see, as a squadron commander, on my first commander's call, I made sure that as part of my legacy that I shared with my members of my squadron that yes, I'm an airline pilot. I fly the Boeing 777 for an airline. I am certified to do that medically. I fly an aircraft for the military, but I'm also an 80% disabled veteran. In my records, it says that I have PTSD, whatever that means. And I still get to fly airplanes. Don't worry, I won't do anything crazy. But for me, I get to continue to live my legacy because of the mental health professionals like the ones they have here at this clinic. I wanted my legacy with my squadron to be that they understand that I, as the squadron commander, the person that they look to for leadership and guidance, that I was willing to be the first one to raise his hand and says, no, it's okay. It's okay to take a knee. It's okay to take a combat pause. And sometimes you have to take a seat so that you can pick up that phone and make that call so that you can get the help that you need. And it is okay. They will get you squared away. They will get your head right. They will help you to match your mental fitness with your physical fitness that we expect of you every single year. Bless you. And so for us, as we close out this day, as we welcome in and usher in this clinic, I want each and every one of you to think about what your legacy is going to be. I want you to think about what your legacy is going to be and what you are going to contribute for others within this community who need to have mental support, that need the mental help that this clinic is there to provide, that's going to help them to live out their legacy. So again, those three things that I talked about. Commitment. What's your level of commitment and why? What are you grateful for? What has you full of gratitude? I know what has me full of gratitude. And your legacy. What is your legacy going to be? And what will we as a community allow the legacy of this clinic and the members and the veterans that come here, what will we allow that legacy to be? Thank you.